It's Friday. Friday!
Yeah, it's Friday. Tabitha, Lauren, what's up? Yep, with Superior Realty Group. And today we're going to talk about a fun topic.
Everybody loves these.
HOAs. So tell them why we decided to talk about HOAs.
So, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the article floating around Facebook, but there was actually an article that hit and it really piqued my interest. In Texas, Austin, Texas, actually, this gentleman decided to paint his house his favorite color because he doesn't have an HOA. So he decided to paint his entire home, front, back, sides, everything, flamingo Pepto-Bismol pink. And there's no HOA, so there's no regulations against him doing this. Yeah. So he decided to do it, and now his neighbors are actually seeking legal action against him personally to kind of reverse it and turn it back to a white brick or some sort of natural tone. But he says this is all he's wanted to do his whole life. So we'll see how well that goes over.
I mean, honestly, I don't think his neighbors have a leg to stand on. Now, granted, I'm not an attorney, but yeah, exactly. I'm a lot of other things, but not that. If there's nothing in the neighborhood regulations and there's no, deed restrictions, then technically he can do whatever, unless there's some city reg or something that says you can't. Yeah. He can do whatever he wants. So,
I'd really love to see if he would paint his house, the inside, like that house that you saw. Oh. Like the psychedelic colors.
Yes. That was crazy. If you haven't seen it, check out my Facebook page. We were looking at a flip and wow.
All the psychedelic.
There's a lot.
Floors and ceilings.
There was a
and
lot
walls.
Going on.
Yes.
There was also cheetah wallpaper in the kitchen on that one.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. But HOAs. So the thing about an HOA is, really, an HOA at its core is designed to protect your assets.
It really is.
So, an HOA is designed so that your neighbor can't put a pink shed in the backyard or decide to, put on, bright fluorescent green shutters or...
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, exactly.
Or have a row of Skittle-colored front doors.
Right, exactly. So, but, HOAs have gotten a bad reputation because in some communities you'll have, like, the HOA police where they take their job a little...
Way too serious.
Their volunteer position a little too seriously, and they give HOAs a bad name.
They can.
People are like, I don't want to live in a neighborhood with an HOA.
Right.
I don't want somebody telling me that I can't have one weed pop up in my front yard.
Right. Or like, I can't put down this stepping stone, or whatever the case may be. In most cases, they're not that extreme. Wow. And, some people associate the cost as far as the HOA is concerned as to what am I getting for this cost? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of smaller neighborhoods in the area that we're in the Madison County, and HOAs could be as little as $50.
Right.
But they're just there to do like the maintenance on some of the like common area spaces, like mowing the front entry space. And that might be all that you get, all the way up to, what were we talking about? Like almost $350 a month.
Exactly.
Depending upon some of the luxury neighborhoods in town. That can also include tennis and golf course.
And sometimes it includes your cable.
Yeah.
We have a couple of neighborhoods that it actually includes your internet and basic cable.
Correct.
So, you really have to look at what you're getting from the HOA.
And if you think it's a benefit for what you're looking for and what you need. Now, I want to talk about more of like the pro side of things. Now, in my opinion, I think that business. The pros of it can be that of, regulations. Now, while we look at regulations as being sometimes a negative connotation, you can look at it as a positive because now you know that your property value is going to maintain and sustain throughout the longevity of you living in the home. Let's say that I live next to you and you painted your house hot pink or orange.
I like orange. I look good in orange. Maybe I want my house orange.
So I will be having a hard time to sell my home when people are driving by to look at it next to this bright orange house.
Right.
So it can hurt your value in the long run, or even taking it to the extreme. And I'm sure that some of you guys from here locally or even out of town can relate that, if you have your house is very well maintained and manicured lawn and very pristine, and you've taken pride in your value of your property, and then the house next door parks their cars on the lot, they have tree-sized weeds growing, it can become an issue. And then at that point, it becomes harder to sell your home, and it can bring down the value of the whole neighborhood as a whole, because then more people don't want to move in there because they're seeing the issues that are arising. So by having the HOA in place, it does help mandate that a little bit.
Right.
And very loosely, I want to press this as it's a very loose system to use. If there is a dispute, they can be a mediating situation. Like if the dogs are barking, or if you're partying too late at night, or parking all over the street, you can go to the HOA to remain that like anonymous type of variance there, and the HOA will then send out the letters.
Right.
So you're safe, and there's not a argument that would arise between neighbor to neighbor, and so it kind of helps with the relationships in the neighborhood. But there are some actual cons that come along with that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can get, like I was saying before, you can get some HOAs where some of the people that sit on the board just take that position a little too seriously, and they can get nitpicky. So, and that's when people don't want to live in the neighborhood.
Right.
You want to protect your assets, and you want to protect the value of your home and the look and feel of your community. But when it comes down to, you had a death in the family and you were out of town and you forgot to pull your trash can up, and you get a nasty letter when you return from the HOA, rather than one of your neighbors just roll your trash can up to the garage.
Right.
Well, that's when people start to get a little bitter about an HOA.
Yeah.
So, I think it really depends. I usually tell people when they're looking at a neighborhood with an HOA, drive through the neighborhood, and that'll help get you help with the feel of how strict the HOA is. Because a lot of buyers, quite frankly, don't want they want an HOA to protect the value of their home, but they don't want a strict HOA that nitpicks.
Right.
Right. They don't want to get letters all the time about every little thing, because, we're all busy working humans, and, you can miss things,
and especially like if we can think of now, like we've had those like weather days that have popped up just recently, so trash days get thrown off and recycling days get thrown off. So your trash bin could be out there on the day you think it's supposed to be picked up, but it's not, and it's the next day, and then you get the nitpicky HOA treasurer or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, it's not really like the letter's going to do anything. It's just a hassle. It's just a matter of the way it makes you feel when you get it, especially when you had no intention of, diminishing the value of your neighbor's house. So another one that's a hot item is satellite dishes. A lot of HOAs do not allow satellite dishes. And, that can be a little sticky, because if you're a big sports fan, you really might need that DirecTV package in your life. I mean, and sometimes your HOA will tell you can't have it. So, I mean, you really just need to read the HOA guidelines before you buy in a community with an HOA, and just understand what you're getting for the money.
And some HOAs are governed and mandated by property management companies that hold the HOA's intents or their interests. And then some are actually kind of the trust and all the money goes through a property management company, as far as no commingling of monies is concerned, but it's actually managed and ran within the community. So, there's two different ways to look at that aspect as well. So, each side of it has their nitpicky ones and the fine, and whatever the case may be. So there's kind of devil's advocate on both sides of that.
Yep, absolutely.
But also when it comes down to HOA, as far as paying the fees, I did want to touch base on this as well, because there is this misconception of, when I close on my home, I have to pay a full year's worth of HOA up front. In theory, yes, but that's actually not out of pocket. So the HOAs typically run from January to January of every year. It's just along with the standard year term. And so you would actually pay for whatever months you're about to use of the HOA.
Right, exactly.
So if you moved in July, you're going to pay July through December, and the homeowner would have already paid for the year, so they just get a credit back from July to the end of the month.
And then sometimes you do have to be careful, and you'll want your closing attorney to ask. Some HOAs have a transfer fee.
Yes.
And I've run into some that transfer fee can be exponential. So I've heard rumors of some that are as much as $5,000. Now, typically, I think they're $75 to to 150.
Yeah.
But, just know, and you might want to ask that up front or read it in the HOA guidelines.
Yes.
Your realtor, if you're buying in an HOA community, should have provided that information to you if you ask. Sometimes we may not provide it if you don't ask because it's a rather thick document and a lot of people just really aren't that interested, but you should be.
And if you have very specific needs as far as like you're looking at a property but you want to build a shed or have some sort of like exterior building to go along with your property, you'll need to get what the document that she's talking about is called the covenants and restrictions within the neighborhood. So the covenants and restrictions will outline very specifically what you can and can't do in a property as far as where to park your boats or RVs. That's something big here. Or if you want to put in a pool.
There are a lot of communities where you can't put in a pool. If they have a community pool, a lot of them have restrictions that you can't put one. So that's something you would want to know.
Yeah, definitely.
If you need to have your own pool.
Yeah. So we just wanted to come on and kind of let you guys know some of the pros and cons of it. And then questions to ask your agent. You definitely need to be asking your agent like, hey, can these things that are important to me be obtained in this property or within this neighborhood? And if not, then we definitely will do our research and finding you a neighborhood that can be conducive of putting those in there.
Exactly. So you're not wasting your time looking at houses that aren't going to meet your needs.
Right.
So anyway, we have a pro HOA and a con HOA. And I think we both see each side of the story and their pluses and minuses. So just make sure you educate yourself and
yeah. And if you guys are catching this on the replay, just let us know where you're seeing it from and when you got it. Like if you're looking at it now live or if you're actually watching it on the replay. We just kind of like to know where our audience is gauging from.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have an awesome weekend.
Bye.